Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
We may be at the end of May, but the sports action just keeps going with the NBA Finals, NHL Stanley Cup Finals, Major League Baseball, and so much more. Get in the mix at betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're going to take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is Steve Austin, Unleashed.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am currently out on vacation, recharging batteries, but just because I'm recharging the batteries, we still got business to take care of. In the meantime, we'll be playing some of the most requested Steve Austin Show classics that have been locked away in the archives. I got a great one for you this week, and here's my producer, Sean, to tell you all about it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. It's producer Sean bringing you episode number 358 with Missy Hyatt. Original air date September 8th, 2016. Missy Hyatt, for you folks that do not know, was one of the premier female pro wrestling valets of the 1980s and early 1990s. Best known for her time in World Championship Wrestling, and before that, the UWF, or Mid-South area, and World Class Championship Wrestling. This episode, Missy and Steve talk about Missy working for Bill Watts in the UWF, as well as the Von Erichs, her relationship with Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. She even addresses some topics pertaining to Gino Hernandez. For you folks that may have been watching Dark Side of the Ring on Viceland, they did do an episode on Gino Hernandez. So she does talk about that. She also talks about her exit from World Championship Wrestling and what happened there. And she even brings up Missy's Manor, which was supposed to be the replacement for Piper's Pit in the WWF. That's right. Missy Hyatt had a very brief time in the WWF. You can see those segments on YouTube. I've never seen them, but I do distinctly remember reading about this segment in the Year in Review Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It's not a hidden gem, but it is definitely an anomaly because Missy Hyatt is very much associated with WCW and World Class Championship Wrestling and the like. So cool to hear her talk about that. And she also talks about going to college and receiving a psychology degree, as well as her interest in serial killers. There's a great story about her and Jesse Ventura going to visit the home of a very notorious serial killer. There's a lot going on in this episode. You guys are going to dig it. All right, this day in Steve Austin history, today being May 30th. We start off in 1992 in Baltimore, Maryland. WCW World Champion Sting and Nikita Koloff defeated Arn Anderson and WCW TV Champion Steve Austin. And the same day, on an airing of WCW Saturday Night, Steve Austin with Paulie Dangerously defeated Larry Zbyszko after Bobby Eaton interfered. This was basically Larry Zbyszko getting out of the Dangerous Alliance after costing the Dangerous Alliance their match at Wrestle War. 1996, we go to the WWF in West Palm Beach, Florida. Savio Vega defeats Steve Austin with a small package. 1997 in San Jose, California, WWF World Champion The Undertaker with Paul Bearer and WWF Tag Team Champion Steve Austin defeat WWF Intercontinental Champion Owen Hart and WWF European Champion Davey Boy Smith via DQ. Lots of gold in that match. And then finally, in 1998, the night before WWF Over the Edge in Detroit, Michigan, saw WWF World Champion Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and the Legion of Doom defeat WWF European Champion Triple H, Kane, and WWF Tag Team Champions, the New Age Outlaws. I give information from the history of WWE.com for this day in Steve Austin history. Coming right up, we've got the Walking Riot, Missy Hyatt, on a classic episode of the Steve Austin Show.
The end of May is going to be wild with both the NBA Finals and the NHL Stanley Cup Finals front and center. And with Major League Baseball in full swing, there is still a ton of action that you should be taking advantage of. The Golden State Warriors are the team to beat. Will they continue their dynasty? Over in the NHL, it's the Bruins and the Blues duking it out for professional hockey's greatest prize. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code PodcastOne or text Bet now to 238-669 to receive a 50% welcome bonus. That's betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partners of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
All right, I'm sitting here in my trailer at the Broken Skull Challenge compound. I got out here just about an hour ago, settled everything in. I knew I was going to do a podcast with Missy Hyatt, who I was a huge fan of way back in the day. And, of course, I'm still a fan of from my days back when I grew up watching professional wrestling. Although Missy Hyatt and I are only about a year apart in age, she got into business before I did. So, anyway, I'm talking with Missy Hyatt. Missy, how are you? It's good to see you again. It's good to talk to you. I can't remember the last time I saw you in person.
I know. No, it was in New York. I saw you in New York. You were doing an autograph show. It was in New York a long time ago, like 2000, I think.
Yeah, well, that's 16 years ago.
Yeah, that's how long it's been.
I've been hit in the head with too many steel chairs, and your opponents have been hit in the head with too many loaded Gucci bags.
Exactly. And just don't remember now in this interview that we're doing that I am the veteran.
Yes, you are. You're going to have to carry me through this thing. Hey, let's go back to you for a second, because I was a major fan of everything that was UWF or Mid-South Power Pro, whatever it was called back then. I know you started in Dallas. You got into business when you were 21. You grew up in Florida, correct?
Yes, I grew up in Tallahassee.
Did you always watch pro wrestling?
No, you know what? It wasn't until I was 17 that I was watching Georgia Championship Wrestling. Well, my dad was, and he was flipping channels, and the Freebirds were on. And I was like, what are you watching, Daddy? He's like, oh, I'm watching wrestling. And I was like, oh, my gosh, what are they doing? And I'll never forget, because they did something, an angle with Terry Bam Bam Gordy, and they put a baby bonnet on his head and a baby pacifier in his mouth, and he was running around and just squealing, and I thought it was the biggest hoot in the world, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I want to be involved in that, and then I started watching it and just became a fan. It was like, that was it. I got the bug. The bug bit me. The Freebirds bit me.
Okay, so you were down in Florida. So how did you end up getting into business? Because your first stop was in World Class, correct?
Right. Well, I moved to Atlanta and I met John Tatum.
Okay.
I had dated Jake Roberts previously to that, but I had met Johnny, and then Johnny went to work for Jim Crockett for a little while, and he worked there, and then after Jim Crockett, he went to work for World Class, and I went with him when he moved to Dallas.
That's a blast from the past when you bring up John Tatum's name, because, man, I used to, when I was playing football at North Texas State University, and John came through the territory, and, he was a hot heel. He was a good worker, good-looking guy.
Yeah.
And he had a ton of heat on him. Of course, I hated his guts. And, but, I just remember him from, the Dallas days.
Facial expressions.
Absolutely,
did you ever notice that? He was so good at the facial expressions. He was like, big crybaby. And, he was so great.
So what did he go to? Who was booking at the time? Was it Fritz?
No. As a matter of fact, it was David Manning and Ken Mantell.
So how did they pitch you? Say, hey, this.
Well, you know what? I was just there. I mean, and they saw me backstage, and David Manning was, hey, we need a valet to go up. Sunshine's a baby face, and she doesn't have a heel, so we need a heel to go up against her. Do you want to be a manager? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll do that. What do I got to do? And they just go out and hit Sunshine with a purse and do it like that. And I was just like, okay, I'll do it. I'd signed up to go to college and I up there in Denton, and I never made it to college. Never made it.
So tell me about your introduction into the business, because you start watching in Florida at 17, and all of a sudden you're in the business, that you decided that that's what you wanted to do. Now, Sunshine was there. You were going to go on in a year or two and start feuding your very famous feud with Dark Journey. But, man, other than, the women wrestlers from back in the day who paved the way, and to the women's scene that's going on now, it was such a male-dominated industry back then, and now here you are, totally, green as grass. So what was the attitude towards you from the boys?
From the boys, they were really nice to me. I mean, I used to go in, there was no two dressing rooms. There was always, the heel dressing room and the face dressing room. But Johnny would take a chair and I'd put it in the corner and I'd face the corner and read a book because I thought it was really disrespectful to be in the dressing room and seeing guys changing and partying and doing whatever they do,
locker room stuff.
Yeah, locker room stuff. And so I used to just sit there and do it. But I remember the first few times that I would come in, they'd go, kayfabe, and I'm like, my name's not Kay, it's Missy,
Well, they're trying to kayfabe you just because you were so green, and maybe they didn't know how long you would last, and so they didn't want to smarten you up to all the trade secrets of the day.
Exactly. And I'll never forget John Tatum and Johnny and Michael Hayes were trying to teach me carnage going down the road at UWF, trying to teach me. And I still haven't ever mastered it either. And it's like, I talk it too slow or something, or I don't know. I can understand a little bit of it, but talking it.
I was never a guy who really gravitated towards the whole use the kayfabe language thing. Now, yeah, I could say the arbitrary word here or there, but it's not something I thrived on. But that being said, it's like now that I've been so far removed from the business, I retired in 2003, and I kind of still, my inner circle of friends, they know my lingo, and I don't, we're talking carny, but I'll say kayfabe. They know what kayfabe means. They know what shoot means. If I say no, like politically, if I'm watching something, man, that's a work. Do you still use those words today in your life?
Words. My best friend, she never really watched wrestling at all, and we go to I do World War II and Civil War reenacting. I'm a living historian, and we'll go and she'll see somebody dressed in something that's, not correct, and she's like, oh, kayfabe, like that to me. And I have to laugh sometimes, or she'll say something and I'll say, oh, that was a shoot, and she was like, yeah, that was a shoot, but she says it never correctly, but she gets the kayfabe down right, or she'll be like, kayfabe those shoes, like that.
Oh, Jesus. Hey, let's talk a quick second about your feud with Sunshine and World Class Championship Wrestling, because she was really over. And so she had been in the business quite some time before you, and of course that territory had been on fire. So what was her attitude towards you? Obviously she needs an adversary. You're the perfect foil. But how did y'all get along? And did she help smarten you up as far as the work aspect of it? How to do this, how to do that? Like, for instance, grabbing your head, and seemingly pulling every hair out, but holding on your hands.
Yes, baby steps with me. She came in there and worked with me and taught with me, and I'll never forget one of the first nights we ever had to roll around together. I laughed because I was having a good time. Because to me, I was getting paid to do something I would have done for free. I mean, I was just having a good time. And we got back in the locker room, and I'll never forget. She comes in that locker room and she's like, "Don't you ever laugh out there." I mean, our hair was in our face and everything, so one could see it. But she was like, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will never do that again. But if it wasn't for Sunshine being such a wonderful person and really helping me and teaching me, I would have never been able to take the abuse that I took in the UWF.
How long did it take you to come to understand just the aspect of heat, how to get heat, how to maintain heat, and what it was? Because that Dallas territory thrived on hot heels, especially you, and of course she was over as a babyface. Tell me about your understanding of how the business worked.
I started because of Jake. Like, Jake really taught me, because we would sit up all night playing cards and watch wrestling and talk. And so I kind of understood the business and I had an understanding of the business, but it wasn't until I actually worked that I got an understanding of it. But I thought the main thing was the crowd. It was so easy. The crowd was so easy to turn and to do. If you did anything, you would just automatically get heat. And anything that I did, I would get heat for it. And it was just, to me, it was simple. Simple.
Also, when I kind of watch back, because I hearken upon those old days when not all the exposés had been done. So many people saw through it right from the get-go, because a lot of people, like, even in the earlier days, in the 40s, 50s, or whatever, people Yeah, it was always on the take. I bought in. When I was a kid growing up 7, 8 years old, I thought it was real. Now, when I was in college and I was driving down to the sportatorium, I knew something was up, but I still wasn't sure. So when you started, I mean, it's still quote unquote real. And when you're a good looking blonde and you're doing dastardly things, I mean, the heat getting process, I would dare say it was a little bit easier back then because people weren't in the know. And all of a sudden, pardon my language, but you have this good-looking blonde bitch out there who's distracting and doing dashing, just hate. You know what I'm saying?
And being very annoying. And
being very annoying, condescending.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'll never forget, like, they had me do the interviews because they said Johnny talked like he was drunk. Like, I don't know why. He wasn't ever drunk.
Yeah.
But they said, okay, Missy, you do the interviews. So I had to start doing the interviews, and they just said whine and complain. And I mean, and I can whine and complain. I've been whining and complaining, since I was young. So that was really simple for me to do that. But I was told one time by Kim Mantell told me that Sunshine, if she's told to haul ass, she has to take 2 trips. And I went out and said it verbatim, haul ass. And I came back and he had a look on his face like, you said ass. And this was when we were on the Saturday night show, which was a Christian station. And he was like so scared they were going to have to bleep that out or do something. I'm like, but you told me to say ass. I didn't understand, like I did what you told me to do.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
You came in as your real name is Melissa Hyatt, so your nickname has probably always been Missy, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I tell people, and from back in the day I was Steve Williams and turned into Steve Austin, Stone Cold, but finally when I was able to dial in the character of Stone Cold after being the Stunning Steve, the Ringmaster and all that, really Stone Cold was me turned up to an 11. Would you say the same thing about Missy, your character, Missy Hyatt?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But were you a whiner and complainer growing up? Because if you come from Florida, I just picture you as being like a pretty tough chick, like, maybe. Or were you a powder puff? I mean, what?
Yeah, I was a powder puff. I mean, my dad, I wrecked a lot of cars. My dad bought me a lot of cars. I was spoiled kind of growing up, so I guess I was a whiner.
Were you a wild child coming up through junior high?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was the geek though in school. Like, I didn't have cool clothes. I was more of a geek in school. But I mean, I did wild things. Like I had a fake ID and would go to bars and go out and have, fun times.
But what kind of grades did you make? Because you've always been very intelligent.
Well, I made C's. C's and B's probably. I just skated through. It wasn't until later on when I went to college that I really put myself, into the zone, because I wasn't prepared to go to college when I was like 17 or 18 when I graduated high school. I was ready. I wanted to get into wrestling. I didn't want to go to college.
Well, at what point in time did you decide, hey, man, this has all been fine and dandy, but I need to get my ass in college and decide to go? No,
what it was when I moved to New York. I moved to New York, and that's when I decided to go to college. Because I always wanted to go to college, and I always wanted to have a degree. And it wasn't until I moved to New York City that I was like, hey, I'm going to go to college while I'm here.
What year was that?
I graduated in 2001.
So what did you end up getting a degree in?
Psychology.
Why did you pick psychology? I mean, because there's so much psychology. I mean, the business is based on psychology.
I know, exactly. I don't know. I think I started out as biology, and I couldn't hack it in biology. And so, and I really like the psych courses, and I really like I like forensic psychology, and I love like investigation discovery and like serial killers and stuff like that.
Let's talk about the serial killers there, because there's some common ground there. Because when I was in WWE, I was the ringmaster, and I was drinking a beer, watching a special on serial killer Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman.
Yes.
And I'm not endorsing anything he did, but he's a very evil guy. But I said, hey man, that's very interesting what that guy's done. He's just a cold-blooded, ruthless son of a bitch and just doesn't give a damn. And I pitched that idea to the WWE, And anyway, that's how I became Stone Cold Steve Austin. And of course, I've read, the Henry Lee Lucas books. All that stuff has been somewhat. I remember going to Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment in Milwaukee way back in the day when we were traveling through.
Me and Jesse Ventura, we were there doing a pay-per-view, and we made the car driver take us by the apartment complex of Jeffrey Dahmer's. And Jesse got out, and we were looking in the dumpsters, and we're like, there's nothing going to be in there. But, we left, but we went by his apartment, too.
I want to go back to psychology, but I want to now go to Mid-South Power Pro UWF. What did you call it? When you worked for Bill Watts, what was the name of the promotion back then? Because it changed.
Oh, it was just UWF.
Okay, and this is when he was trying to make the next step to the big level.
Yeah, he was trying to be the next. Well, that's what happens when we raided. Ken Mantell took everybody from World Class and went over to UWF, and that's when he was trying to be up against Crockett. So
when you say we raided, was when you were already with Bill Watts?
Well, no, when we were all with World Class and everybody left World Class and went to UWF. Ken Mantell took everybody, the Freebirds and everybody, and me and Johnny and Jack Victory, and took everyone.
Well, that's a hell of a damn thing there. What was the strategy there? Was just because was it Fritz that was running the territory?
I don't know. You know what? I really don't know. And I've had this talk with a friend of mine. And I said, if I would have known that us leaving would have killed the territory, I would have stayed, because Fritz treated me so well and gave me my start. And they just, I loved working there, and it was so easy, Friday night Sportatorium, Monday night Fort Worth, and close shows. We weren't on the road like we were in the UWF, and we didn't have to put up with full like we had to put up in the UWF. But he's like, no, but the territory, it died after that. It died after that. I have a question for you about that, because.
Okay, but let's put a break on the UWF. I got to go back to the Sportatorium, because you were there with so many battles. When I think of that place, it smelled like piss, beer, hot dogs, popcorn.
I was going to ask you,
yeah.
How did it feel? How did it feel being there, going there as a fan, and then going there, working there, watching it as a fan in its heyday, when there's all those people there, and then going to work there and there's only 200 people there? How did it feel?
That's a great question, because, when I was playing football at North Texas State, and that was 86, 87, so World Class was running pretty strong then still. It was starting to fume out. It was going to fume out in 89. So it was still pretty hot and heavy. And we would go down on the Friday nights, me and my buddies from college. We'd drink beer, get drunk, and throw shit at the wrestlers. That's what you did back then, right? A couple of years later, when I'm breaking in and I'm taking the school there on the Saturday mornings after the TV taping, there I am in that building, and I couldn't believe it. I was like a kid in a candy store. And then finally, I started working. And when I first started working, I was just a young, good-looking baby face with long blonde hair. And P.Y. Chew High and all the hot heels from Tennessee would come in and beat the shit out of me, try to get some heat on them. And I was a nobody, so I was just paying my dues. But then to finally start working out there, it was so fun back then with that little string that ran down to the entranceway. And the Von Erichs, those Von Erich boys, when you used to watch them on TV, and you can vouch for this, because I don't think a lot of people understand how over those Von Erich boys were. They would get mugged. Girls would be hugging them, kissing them. They'd have about 4, 5, or 6 phone numbers written on paper in their trunks or in their hands. It was mayhem. And so, I went down there. Nobody gave a shit about me because I wasn't anybody. But it was awesome. Hey, what kind of man was Fritz to you? I never really got a chance to meet him.
You never got a chance? Oh, he was wonderful to me. I'll never forget going up in his office when they wanted to hire me, and it was Fritz and Carrie and Kevin sitting in there. And they're like, okay, so we're going to hire you. What name were we going to use? And we were trying to figure out a name. And Johnny called me Missy, and they're like, well, let's just use your name, like that. And Fritz always paid. He paid really well. I mean, I never ever looked at my check and went, oh, I shouldn't have gotten paid that. Like, we got paid really well. He paid us well. He was always, if he said something, he did it. He was an honest guy. He was a wonderful man.
What was your take on the locker room there? Because I've heard tales from back in the day that was a pretty hairy locker room, just as far as just blow. I mean, some of the guys smoking pot. And this isn't one of those we're trying to bury everybody, but I heard it was a pretty wild dressing room by all accounts.
It was pretty wild. Like Gino Hernandez was there, and Gino, would come in there with his Louis Vuitton, and dressed up, looking, sharp dressed man, and then you'd have Kerry come in, which would be funny, and he'd walk around, he'd shake everybody's hand, and about 15 minutes later, he'd go and do it again and shake everybody's hand.
Okay, I got to ask you a question. Was that a rib or was that a shoot? Because
I think it was a shoot.
Okay, I think it was too, because when I first came in, when you first come in that front sportatorium door, if you hang an immediate right, that's a janitor's closet. And when I first started doing the commercials for Chris Adams Wrestling School, they made me dress in there. And then finally, after a couple of months, they let me dress, in the dressing room to the left, where all the boys dressed, because I wasn't kayfabed anymore. And I walked in there, and Kevin said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" Kevin Von Erich. And I said, "I'm doing good." And then a couple of minutes later goes, "Hey, man, how are you?" He said, "Man, it's been a while. I haven't seen you in a long time. Man, we used to have some good matches together." And I said, "Kevin, I just met you for the first time a while ago." I said, "I'm just now starting." And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I thought it was ribbing me, but I think it was a shoot.
Yeah, I think it was.
Here's the thing. I was going to work with Kerry one night because a lot of the top talent wasn't there. I'd only been in the territory or in the business less than 6 months, and I'm working on top in some of these little Dallas spot shows with either Kevin or Kerry. And, of course, it was literally a 5-minute match, literally. And it'd be something where I'd shine them with one high spot or they'd beat the shit out of me, and then all of a sudden I would be in an iron claw. And I'd be out. But one time.
Iron claw. I'm really upset because I always wanted to get the iron claw. I got spanked by Kevin Von Erich one time, but I always wanted to get the iron claw, and I never got the iron claw, and you got the iron claw.
One time I was going to, I think we were working Cleburne. It was just a little spot show outside of Dallas, and I pulled into a gas station, and I kind of looked over. I did a double take with, here's this guy with this awesome physique. And it was Kerry, and he was wearing his boots and his ring gear, and that's before he lost his foot. And he was out there gassing up his car in just his trunks and his wrestling boots. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? You talk about living a gimmick.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine. That's a good story, though.
Why do you think... what do you think happened to those guys? I never thought in a million years that Kevin would be the last one left.
I know. I don't know if it was after David died, trying to live up to a standard that they couldn't live up to. You know how they always talk about the Kennedy curse, and the Von Erich curse. I don't know if it's something that they were always trying to live up to David's standards. Because David was like the heir apparent, was going to take over everything. That's what I think. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that's what it was.
From a work standpoint, everybody considered him world champion material, and I always thought Kerry had that look, and of course Kevin did too. They're almost neck and neck, but Kerry probably a little bit higher. Just his charisma.
His charisma. He was a superstar. I mean, he looked like a superstar. You would see him not in wrestling boots and not in wrestling gear, walking down, in an airport or somewhere, you would look at him and say, he's a superstar.
He's like somebody. You might not know who he is, but he's got to be famous.
Yeah, he's got to be famous. He's a superstar because he just had that look to him.
So if you were going to use your, psychology or your psychiatry, what went on there? Just trying to live up to David? Or what was Fritz too giving, as a father? Because they had everything they wanted.
Maybe he just gave them everything they wanted. And they didn't, and then they just couldn't live up to to the high standards of what David was. And they were everything.
They all treated me like gold. And of course, I remember when God rest his soul, Percy Pringle and I did a little feud with Chris, and we beat the hell out of him. He got some color, we tied him up, and he was always he was just kind of the runt of the family.
Yeah.
And he had such a tough road to go, and then he took him. It was just tragic. And then with Kerry, I guess got caught forging prescriptions, and then he decided to end it. I mean, it was heartbreaking because literally, I remember being at North Texas State. I remember when David died, but I think I remember when Gino died. I was riding in my 76 Monte Carlo, and I heard that Gino had died, and I was like, man, that's fucked up. How'd he die? Did you think that there was some shady circumstances there? Because I've heard a million stories.
Yeah, I thought there were some shady circumstances too, but you know what? I don't think it was. I think it was just an accidental OD. Do you know, this is a good one for you. They were going to put me with Gino. They were going to do a split with me and John and put me with Gino. And then Gino died. And I'm like, great. Gino died.
What did you think? Did that blow your mind? And you knew that he was a party guy, to say the least.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts when you heard that news and knowing that you were going to be put with him as a pair?
Yeah. We thought it was going to be great. We thought we were going to be like elevated up high because, Gino just lost his hair with Chris and everything. And they were trying to think of something to do with them, and they were going to split them apart. And then they wanted to do something with Gino. And then Johnny and I were thinking, we're going to get a run with Gino. That's like, we're going to be up there.
What do you think if Gino would have, if let's say he never would have died, if he would have went up to New York, he would have had a monster run.
Oh, yeah.
Good looking guy. He could work. One of those natural heat getting magnet kind of guys.
Yes, he would have had a hell of a run up there. Just his whole persona, because he was Gino.
Yeah.
In and out of the ring. He really was. He was so much Gino.
Make sure to stick around after this podcast to get the latest headlines from the AP News Minute.
Hi, I'm sports broadcaster Anne-Marie Anderson.
I'm Olympian Holly McPeak.
We're both former athletes, businesswomen, and mothers, and we want to help you create the life you want using sports like a boss.
Whether you're an athlete, entrepreneur, or parent, we want to help you get to where you want to be.
Well, good, because I either got too many kids or I'm overscheduled, overwhelmed. Honestly, Holly, half the time I feel like I'm screwing it up.
Well, that's why we created this podcast, to help get coaching, parenting, and the whole sports culture back on track.
We've got a big network of people, elite athletes like you, Holly, entertainers, experts. We're going to find out what works for them and what doesn't so that you handle sports like a boss.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
Let's go to UWF. I got to ask you about working for Bill Watts.
Okay.
How was going from working with for Fritz Von Erich in that Dallas area where everybody was kind of taking care of you and, sharing knowledge with you?
They would give you like your booking sheet and your check, and then they'd have to give you directions, with your booking sheet. I mean, everything. It was just, they took good care of you there. And then to go to UWF, and it was just kind of like find your own way.
Well, you go back to the Dallas thing because, I was coming in 89, and that part of the organization that was still there. And there you get a booking sheet, but it was like an 8x10, office. I mean, like an office paper. And it'd be a little grid. It was like a weekly grid. I don't even know if it was monthly. And because I didn't know. And it had the list of towns. And they said if you were on the card or not. And you're like, oh, well, wow, well, I'm not on that card. I wonder what's wrong. And so here's a question for her. I'll only ask you one money question.
Okay.
When I broke in Dallas, Texas, my first match was with Frogman LeBlanc. It was in the Sportatorium. It was a television match. And I had no business being on TV because I was greener than shit. And so I wrestled Frogman LeBlanc, and I beat him with the flying clothesline. And when I went to Chris's office, that one upstairs, and Chris had trained me, of course, so, I was representing the school. And all of a sudden, here comes Frogman. It's me, him, and Chris, and they're talking. He goes, I think you'll win with like a flying clothesline. That's my shitty English impression because I got my throat is killing me right now because I can't talk. So anyway, I go out there and I won the match with the flying clothesline. Tony Falk was the referee. God bless him. He was trying to call spots for me because we were shitting the bed out there. My point is, for that match, I made $40. I got my check like 1 or 2 weeks later, and I'm like, man, $40, that ain't very much money for being on TV. And I talked to Jarrett when he bought the territory from Fritz von Erich, and it became a USWA almost immediately. If it wasn't already
He
USWA.
was only paying the guys, what, $50 or $75?
No, not me. I was making, Missy, $15 and $20 a night. And you know that territory over there, there's not a round trip that's under 260 miles.
Exactly.
Memphis to Nashville is 400 miles round trip. So I was making $15 to $20 a night. So when you first started off in the business, just a house show, what were you making?
My first check, I still have my first check. It was $50.
$50 for a shot or a week?
For one shot. My first time when I came out to hit Sunshine with the purse, it was $50. But I was making, in world class, I was making probably between like $100 and $175 a night.
That's damn good money back in the day.
Yeah. And that was great money for 1985. Plus,
Absolutely.
Johnny was making money. Johnny was making more than me, so we thought we were, great. And then when I went to UWF, then we got the contract. Got my first contract, and that was for $50,000 a year.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, when I went to UWF.
Jesus Christ, that's awesome money for...
Yeah, that was great. But then Bill Watts would, if you did anything, he would fine you and take it out of you. And you would never, before we got the contract, it seems like we were making more money because he was paying us on the house. And like one of the houses were up and me and Dark Journey, and I ended up getting like a $400 paycheck for like Jackson, Mississippi. And then once I signed the contract to make the $50,000, then it was like $187.50 a night. Like he broke it down. And it was like, and you never would make over that.
That wily veteran.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. Here's what I'm thinking. Okay, hey, I can either pay you like we're paying you now, or I can guarantee you $50,000 a year and you'll sign a contract. Is that what he said?
Yeah.
So it sounds good when all of a sudden you hear the lump sum, and this is 85, 50 G's.
This was 86. This was 86.
But in that zone, all I'm saying is you get that guaranteed money, and you're a wrestler or a valet or a personality, and you're making 50 G's. That's a shit pile of money.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was great. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I bought my first car without my daddy's help. Co-signing for me because I walked in there with the money and bought me my 300ZX Turbo, and thought I was the hot thing, going around.
Hey, talk to me about the traveling down there in the UWF, because the Mid-South, I was referred to as Mid-South, but that was a territory known for a shit pile of wheel time.
Yeah, I think whoever booked the towns would sit there with a big map and just throw darts and say, okay, they're going to be in Jackson one night, then they're going to be in Houston, then they'll be in Tulsa, then we'll have them go down to Baton Rouge, and then to Dallas. I mean, it was long trips.
So were you traveling at that time with Eddie?
Well, no, I was traveling with Johnny at first.
Okay.
Me and Johnny were together, and we used to travel with One Man Gang, as a matter of fact. He had a van, and I loved traveling because his wife would cook sandwiches, is what he called it, sandwiches for us. And we used to ride with One Man Gang a lot of the time, and that was great. That was some fun times. And but yeah, we used to have to travel. I mean, we'd fly a little bit, like he would give you a voucher or $180 to fly to get to Tulsa for the TV taping every 2 weeks, where out of Baton Rouge or wherever, and you could do that, or you just take the money and drive it.
So what did you think about life on the road? Because you're talking 86, right?
Yeah, 86, 87.
86, 87, you've been a year and a half, 2 years in the business. And, well, Jesus Christ, here's the thing. You started when you're 21, so now you're 23.
Yeah.
You're still a pup. So this has got to be just like all fun and games.
To me it was all fun and games until Dark Journey kicked my ass every night.
Now,
But it was
how did Dark Journey get introduced back in the day? Because as I was a fan of the feud, I forgot her introduction and her liaison or her relationship with Dickie Slater.
Yeah, she had a relationship with Dickie Slater, and Dickie brought her in, and then she ended up staying, and Dickie left. And so then they had her manage Missing Link.
Yeah.
The Missing Link,
That's right.
yeah, to go up against me.
Okay, now, as you were feuding with Sunshine, she was taking you under her wing. You all had great chemistry, and now you go into UWF, and it's Dark Journey, and she's a pretty tough lady.
Oh, my God. Let me tell you, she beat my ass every single night. I would go out because I could never, because I was always told, don't ever cry in the dressing room. Don't ever let them see you cry. So I
Who
used
told
to go
you that?
Johnny.
Okay.
Johnny and Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes. Because Michael Hayes, we used to travel with Michael a lot.
Good 411.
So, yeah. So they told me never let them see you cry. And I used to go out and just cry. Go get in the car and just cry because my knees hurt. I mean, she broke my thumb. She busted my nose. I mean, she would hear the crowd screaming, you know, because it had so much heat and screaming, and she would just pound the living crap out of me. And I'll never forget Carl Fergie was laughing because my hair's going all, because I had a bald spot in the back of my head from her like pulling my hair out and everything. And like the boys used to come out to watch us because they like, the bitches are going to fight. You're going to watch because they're going to fight, you know. And I tried so many times going over to Jake's dad,
Grizzly.
Yeah, Grizzly's house, and trying to show her, look, when you grab me by my hair, I'm gonna grab your wrists. Now let me show you what to do. And it didn't matter. And we would do and back then, because the TV taping was every 2 weeks, we would do the same match in the towns around.
Yeah.
And so we'd have the same finish and the same match. We'd have one thing like, okay, I pull a leg, she chases me around 2 ring posts, I roll in, she rolls in, she doesn't get a hold of me, she almost gets me, and I roll out. Every night, she screwed it up. I wouldn't pull a leg, she'd just start chasing me out of nowhere. Or either I'd pull the leg, she wouldn't chase me. Or either I'd roll in, she'd roll in and beat my ass. And then John would have to pull me out. I mean, it was like, I don't understand this girl. What does she not get? Because, I mean, they used to come to me and they would just say, okay, this is what you're going to do, blah, 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 blah. And they'd walk away. And then you'd have to know. I mean, you couldn't just go out there, you know, you'd have to know what your finish and know what the finish is.
Damn right. And you couldn't have your head in your ass because all of a sudden something's going to happen. If you miss your cue, you're fucked.
You got to know what the finish is, and you got to know when to go on cue, when to do stuff, you know. And back in the UWF now, the heels and faces were in separate dressing rooms, and so you had the referees running back and forth talking, and they used to talk in the ring, and you know, you were told that, you know, Ken would come to you and give you a finish, and that's it. I mean, he'd give you the finish and walk out of the room, and you'd have to have that. You'd have to know what you're doing when you go out there. And I don't understand that girl. She just would screw it up almost every night. And it was just like, she beat me.
But how was that? I want to get back to Dark Journey. How was that, you know, when you're green as grass, or, you know, when you came in Dallas, so there's kind of a common area, but like you said, in UWF, just like Nashville Fairgrounds, babyface heels, totally different sides of the building. You cannot talk. It's referee. You say, hey, he's going to catch this on you. And go about 8 or 10 minutes or whatever. So they're relaying the finish to you. And all of a sudden, if you don't have a good set of ears or some wherewithal to process information, you know, you're gonna fuck this thing up. And you're talking about big money riding on a hot angle, which is putting asses in the seats. And all of a sudden, whether you work for Bill Watts, Fritz Von Erich, you're working for a promoter who expects you to be professional enough, knowledgeable enough to carry out the angle at hand.
Oh yeah, definitely. And many a times Bill Watts would come in and scream. And like we'd sit there like little kids like this with our heads down because we're like, he's screaming, you know, and it's just like, you know, and we all got it.
And here's the thing. Bill Watts was an intimidating man. He's a big guy. He was the boss. He was super smart. He had eyes behind his head. And so, all of a sudden he's talking to you. It's like this voice of God. With this
exactly.
So was Dark Journey, when you tied up, was she shooting or was she just snug as fuck?
No, she was shooting on me. She was shooting on me.
So did you never could smarten her up?
I never could smarten her up. And then Eddie tried to teach me how to get a sugar hold on her, and she was just too, and I could never get one on her, and I tried so many times. And
okay, stop. Well, explain to my audience what a sugar hold is, because I know, but I'm laughing because I don't picture you with a sugar hold.
Okay, well, a sugar hold is just when you get someone where they can't move.
Yeah, it's a front face lock. And
you get them and you get their head on the mat, so they're face first down on the mat.
You can control the person. That's what a sugar hold is. Long story short, I don't want to go to an MMA thesis or branch out. But a sugar hold in wrestling was quite simply a hold where you just settle the motherfucker down. If they're working too rough with you, come to Jesus. Hey, slow down.
Slow down. And
but you never could get her in it.
I could never get it on her. I tried it. I'm too much of a girly girl. I could never get it on her.
Hey, you stay in UWF. Jim Ross was the color commentator or the main announcer.
Yes.
And Jim was one of my favorite announcers of all time. I think as much as, and you grew up down in Florida, so, Gordon Soley is God. But, man, Jim Ross, man, when he was the voice down there for Watts and when he went to Crockett's, went to WCW and then WWF, I just thought he was the greatest of all time. Did he ever help you or drop any knowledge on you because he was a wealth of information because he'd been in the business for so damn long?
Not in UWF. It wasn't until I got to WCW that he really helped me out. When I used to work with him hosting the shows. That's when he really helped me out. But in UWF, he hardly never really spoke to me that much. Because I couldn't see him that much.
How different was the locker room in UWF than a world-class championship wrestling? Because y'all had really a who's who of people that were there, legitimate tough guys, whatever Hall of Fame you'd put them in because there's so many and maybe whatever. Future Hall of Famers with, the Steiners, Sting, Warrior, Murdoch, Dickie, Slater, everybody that was there was damn near a Hall of Famer.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So what was the attitude? What was the difference between UWF and Dallas?
Well, to me, it was just more people. To me. I mean, it was the same, but it was just more people, and it was like we were up a little bit level. Like we were in world class, we were down here, but we moved up a level, moved up a notch.
Was that the perception that UWF was an upgrade from world class?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we felt like. Because going out there in front of the Tulsa Civic Center that was sold out every 2 weeks and going to Jackson, the houses were just so much bigger, and it was just like, it was, and being in the Super Bowl and places like that, New Orleans, it was just a lot more people came. So it just seemed more like we were a step up.
What were your thoughts when Jesus Christ was the Blade Runners? Were they the Blade Runners there?
No, they weren't the Blade Runners there. They were the Blade Runners, I guess, maybe before I got there.
Were they?
Sting was already Sting, and the other Blade Runner wasn't there when I got there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so did at this point, not to go over your chronology of dating, but is Eddie Gilbert in the territory at this time?
Yes.
Okay, now did Bill entrust him with the booking?
No, but him and Hill was doing the booking, and Eddie would help out. Eddie would do his stuff, and help out. It wasn't until later, until the end, before he sold to Crockett, that Eddie was doing the booking.
So then Eddie was booking for Crockett?
No, Eddie was booking for Bill Watts.
After he sold to Crockett?
Right before he sold to Crockett.
Okay.
Yeah, right before.
Sorry, I get my timeline. What were your thoughts on Eddie Gilbert's take on the business? Because he was considered by many to be a really smart guy.
He was a really smart guy, and he loved the business, and he had been booking since he was a kid. I mean, his mom has notebooks of him writing out storylines and writing out who versus who. And we're talking at a young age too. You know, growing up watching that Memphis wrestling, and he would take the Memphis show and then he'd rewrite it how he saw it and his characters and everything. He was really smart. It's a shame that he's not around.
I know.
There's so many of them. It's a shame.
What do you think the highlight of your stay in UWF was?
Oh my gosh, my highlight of my stay. Okay, this is when once a year they have the Tulsa, and so we wrestled at the Tulsa Fair. They put me in a dunking machine. And I got to be rude to people and have them dunk me.
So you just insult people to get them to pay their $5 to throw 3 gimmicks at you and put you in the water.
Dunked me, and I was in it, and I was wearing a nice dress and everything, and I got dunked a bunch of times. And I had the best time doing that because, you know, what can they do? I'm behind the screen thing. You know, I'm calling them jabronis. They don't even know what it is. Yeah. that was probably one of the highlights.
I didn't think that you getting dunked at a state fair in Tulsa would be the highlight of your stay at UWF, but it's a great story.
Yeah.
How did you get the call up to WCW?
Well, Eddie and I were in Continental. He was booking Continental. And so Eddie called
Where
Dusty.
was Continental based out of?
Alabama.
But what
Montgomery,
town?
Alabama. Montgomery.
Okay.
Yeah, Montgomery,
and that was
Alabama.
a great territory for a while.
Yeah, Eddie booked. I mean, they were running nothing, and then Eddie came in and started running, and they got it up really good. It was good for about a year. You know, it was going really good. But then David Woods, the guy that owns it, wasn't a wrestling guy, and he wanted to change things and do things and stuff like that. So when we found out once Crockett, you know, got sold to TBS, you know, Eddie called Dusty, and Dusty had us come over there, and we got a job then.
Okay, now tell me about what year was that? Because I went...
89.
89. Yeah, because I got there in...
91.
Golly, you know my career better than I did. I got there in 91, but here was the deal. They told me this. I went to see Dusty. He had the book, as you know. And so he goes, yeah, baby. He goes, what's your wrestling name? I said, well, I'm going to Stunning Steve right now. He goes, you are going to heal the baby. He knew, but he's just asking me.
Right.
I said, well, Dusty, I'm working heel. And he goes, all right. He told me what the deal was. The deal was back then when I came in, Missy, was when you walked through the doors of WCW, you signed a contract at that time for $75,000 a year. Right. Then the next year it would double to 156, or some guys got the 104 deal, but for most guys it doubled to 156, and then after that you were on your own as far as negotiating whatever happened after that. So all of a sudden I went from making, at the time I had about $100 a night guarantee from Jerry Jarrett in the USWA, up from the 15 and 20. This is my second tour back. And all of a sudden, I go into WCW, I'm making 75 G's a year. So when y'all go in, what's the money situation? Was that another guaranteed contract like I just put out?
Contract, yeah, that was another guaranteed contract. It was 75. Yep. It was 75. It was just the basic 75. But they wanted to give, they really, it was a deal thing. It was 150 for both of us.
Oh, that's a pretty good package deal.
Yeah, that was like a package thing. So that's how they did it when we first started. But then, me and Eddie ended up breaking up, and then I had to go on my own. And that was a whole other long trying to negotiate, and I never really made that much money in WCW.
So how long did you end up staying there?
5 years.
That's a pretty good stay.
Yeah, that's a great stay. It's a great stay.
So when you break up with...
And I would have stayed longer, but, things happen.
So when you break up with Eddie, he was still in the territory, right?
Yeah, for a little bit.
Just a little bit.
But then he left.
So then who were you traveling with, those last few years?
I didn't travel with anybody. I traveled by myself. I really went by myself because I was... First, I was managing, and then I was hosting the show. When me and Eddie broke up, I was hosting the show, so I traveled by myself. I didn't go, I would have my own rent-a-car. I'd fly to the, place myself. I mean, and then Jason, the guy I was dating, he would be with me a lot of the times. He would come with me a lot of the times. So that's who I was traveling with. And then when we broke up, then I was still back by myself traveling. But then I never wanted to go back managing again. And that's a question I wanted to ask you too, because you and Brian in 93, when you were with Brian, that whole time for those worldwide tapings, were courting me as your manager. Where was that ever going to go?
I don't know. I guess somebody pitched me that idea, or pitched us that idea. Brian thought of a lot of the stuff for us. He always thought about the gold chains, the matching trunks, the vests.
Yeah, because I went to Eric, and I was just like, I went to Dusty. I go, why am I managing the Nasty Boys? I go, I don't want to manage them. I go, it means more. I go, I should manage the Hollywood Blondes. That would be more me. That would be more my character than the Nasty Boys, whatever. But the thing is that after Jason and I broke up, Jason was good friends with Bischoff, and Jason knew that I didn't want to be a manager, that I loved hosting the shows, so that's why I was back as a manager. And then that's why I didn't get my contract renewed, because of Jason, I mean, it took me 10 years to figure. It took me 10 years and about $60,000 at Marymount Manhattan College in psychology to figure out that one.
Hey, I don't know if you remember this or not. I think I have it correctly. When I made my debut in WCW, if I'm not mistaken, I thought it was it Fayetteville, North Carolina? A lot of things happened in Fayetteville, or probably it might have been Center Stage even. No, it was Florence, South Carolina.
I think it was.
You interviewed me.
Yeah, I interviewed you. And who was the girl? Who was that? Whose idea was it to bring Vivacious Veronica in?
Dusty Rhodes. It was either Dusty or Magnum. They just figured, hey, man, I needed a woman, a chick with me, a manager. Be respectful, I don't mean that in a bad way. They just pictured me with a manager, and I wasn't quite as talkative as I would end up being a Stone Cold. But I just remember that first interview. I went out there, and I'm walking to the ring. Of course, I'm nervous as hell, man. This is WCW. I mean, this is almost the big leagues, because WWE or WWF at the time was still the bigs, right? Walking out there, and I hear this from Hollywood, California, weighing 252 pounds, and I'm sitting there as I'm walking to the ring where you're standing. I'm saying to myself, who the fuck are you talking about? Am I going to the wrong ring? I ain't from Hollywood. And they said, Stunning Steve Austin. I think it was Gary Michael Capetta. And I was like, what the fuck? How did they decide I was going to be from Hollywood, California arbitrarily without asking me a goddamn thing? So,
I know.
And here's the thing, Missy. I went out there. I don't remember too much of the interview, but I went back and I had a damn booger right on the inside edge of my nose. And I was so embarrassed. I just went on national/worldwide TV with the bear in the cave. And not one single motherfucker could smarten me up and say, hey, dude, before you go make your debut on national television, pull that booger out of your nose.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't see it, or I would have told you. If I would have seen it, I would have told you.
That would have been a great moment if you'd have just stopped in right there in the middle of the interview.
Hey, go check yourself. Excuse me, if you want to blow your nose.
So what was the end of your run in WCW? What happened there?
That's what it was. They came to me and told me I had another contract coming, but then something happened. We were down there at doing the TV tapings in Orlando, and I forget exactly what happened. Oh, I remember the Clash of the Champions. We were having, when we used to have the Clash of the Champions right before the pay-per-view, and so on the Clash of the Champions, it was the Nasty Boys with their titles up against Mick Foley and another crazy looking guy. Right. Mick Foley, I forget who it was. Anyway, so they screwed up at the Clash and they didn't get the timing right, and so they didn't get the 1, 2. They were supposed to get the 1, 2, 3 after the 10-minute time limit was up, and so they didn't see that on TV. The people at home saw that, but the people at home didn't see that. But on the replay, they showed I run in the ring and I get kissed by the two guys, by Mick Foley and the other guy, and I'm spitting and being nasty, nasty, nasty. And so I remember it was not Jim Hurd, it was Kip Fry or one of those.
Bob Kip Fry, whatever.
Yeah, Bob. It was Bob. He asked me, how did the clash go? And I told him, I said, well, I go, you're trying to sell the pay-per-view is that it's a no time limit match and that the guys won on the clash but they didn't see it at home. They didn't see the 1, 2, 3 and the time limit. I go, instead of on the replay of seeing the blonde girl get kissed by the ugly guys, shouldn't they have shown the replay of they got the 1, 2, 3 and then the referee saying, no, the time limit's already out? And so he said, yeah, you're right. They should have done that. Well, I was rollerblading that night around the thing, and Eric Bischoff came up to me, and he's like, don't you ever go over my head again. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you went over my head, and you told them something, about the Clash of the Champions. I'm like, no, they just asked my opinion, and I gave them my opinion. That's all. And then the next day, I was told not to get on the bus. And then I found out later that that my contract wasn't getting renewed. And that was it.
No shit.
Yeah, that was it. But I know it's been because Jason and Bischoff are really good friends, and I know that, I know how guys are, and I know how girls are. It's the same thing with girls. But I do have to say that if it wouldn't have happened, I never would have gotten to move to New York City.
Really?
And I never would have gone to college. And I think was the best. Because if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
That's true. And I always say if you can get over in front of a New York crowd, you can get over anywhere when it comes to the wrestling business. But let me ask you, that happens at Clash of Champions, all of a sudden you don't have a contract, you're out of business.
Right.
So how did you process this? Because, I got a FedEx in the mail after I got a phone call from Janie Engel, letting me know that I'd gotten fired. And so that was it for me. And then, luckily enough, Paul E. called me and I went to ECW. You're out of the business because you basically got a door slammed in your face. Were you angry? Did you feel mistreated?
No, my feelings hurt. I cried. I'm a girl. I cried. And I was like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And then I started thinking, well, I'm going to move to New York, And so within a month, I moved to New York City.
What about the brief stay in WWE?
Oh, like that? No, the brief stay in WWE happened in 1988.
Oh, that's I'm way out of time here.
Yeah, that was back in 1988.
What happened there? It seems to me you would be tailor-made for WWF.
Oh, my God, yeah, I thought so, too. But let me tell you, I was so green. They wanted me to take over Piper's Pit. And they had me scripted, and I went out there, and I did it, and they had me be a baby face, and it was so horrible. If you saw the tapes of my Missy's Manners, you would want to die. Plus, my southern accent was so bad. It was just like, hey, y'all. How y'all doing out there? I mean, it was
I went back and before we talked, I watched some of those and I was like, wow, Missy's so much better than this because you are and because I know you and we've always talked and you've always done great promos when you have a promo to do. So I could tell that you were heavily scripted and like you said, you were green, but you weren't comfortable being, if they just said, hey, here's our main points, go do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, and I asked him, and I begged Vince, I said, let me go out there and be Missy Hyatt and be me, and let me interview these guys the way I want to interview them. I didn't even know on one of them to hand the microphone over.
Yeah, there's a couple of awkward things there.
And because I had never done the microphone thing, but I went and called Eddie, and Eddie said, no, don't do that. Come home. Dusty will give you a job. And so I did. I told Vince, no, I can't do it. And that was probably the stupidest thing I ever did in my life. But
why?
Because if I would have stayed, who knows?
Right.
Who knows? Because, I mean, I'll never forget when I first met Jim Crockett. Jim Crockett just bought UWF, and I was going to WWE. And I walked up to Jim Crockett, and I go, hi, I'm Missy Hyatt. I want out of my contract. I'm going to WWE, and I'm going to get me a doll. you know, and he was like, okay, we'll let you out of your contract. I said, okay, thank you, you know, and I was so happy to go to Vince, thinking that, you know, because Vince told me, oh, you're gonna take over Piper's Pit, and I did all these promos about how it's taken a woman to take over a man's job, you know, for Piper's Pit. I did these promos like that, and I mean, and Vince had me, you're never gonna be able to go to the grocery store alone. You're gonna have security. You're going to be a superstar. You know how Vince talks. You know how it is.
What was the difference in that territory versus all the ones you've been? Because New York is different than anybody else, in my opinion.
Well, to me, I mean, I was only there for like 3 tapings. Right. So, I mean, and I stayed away from everybody. I mean, I had like my own dressing room. And the first time I met Hulk Hogan, it was funny. He's like, so I heard you're here to take my spot. And I'm like, no, your chest is still bigger than mine. You know? And he liked that. So I guess he's always been very nice to me since.
So you're there for a cup of coffee. Did it feel good to go back to the South?
Yeah, but I felt like I had a tail between my legs because I was like thinking that I was going to become a big superstar, and I had to go back to Dusty, and I had to go back with my tail between my legs and go back to Jim Crockett and go, hi, can I have a job back, please? Yeah. And
that's so hard to do, but you know, sometimes as like a guy in the ring, sometimes you can go out there and, you know, maybe 5, 6 years in the business, maybe 7, or, you know, 3, wherever you're at. And all of a sudden you're thinking, hey man, I got this. I'm pretty fucking good. You know, and you got to have confidence in yourself, or if you don't, no one's going to believe in you. And all of a sudden you go out there and you shit the bed, or something happens, you blow an angle or fuck something up, and you're like, you know, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. And so it's, you know, the business has many steps along the way that will humble you, make you rethink things, and reset you. Because you'll get on a little bit of run of confidence. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, I'm not as good as I thought I was. I need to get my shit down a little bit better.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's what really upset me, too, is after I left WCW, that WWE never called. Like, I thought for sure they would have called just because, you know, I was still damn good at what I was doing. And I was still young. You know, I was 30. I wasn't an old hag yet, you know.
No, you had 9 years in the business. You were a veteran, and you were just coming into your prime.
Yeah.
And you're smart, too, because, like you said, you wanted them to call you. You know the deal. You never want to make the phone call. You know, like Eddie made the phone call that one time. In parts of your career, you do. But always you want them to call you.
Right. Yeah, and they never called me. And so, you know, nothing ever happened.
Hey, tell me about your run in ECW.
Oh, my gosh.
How wild was that? Because out of all the dressing rooms that I have been in, the ones that I've heard about in the mid-'80s in World Class, when I went up there in 95, you know, I'll just say that there was different cliques.
96, right after you. I was right there after you.
Really? Is that when you went in there?
Yeah, 96.
Okay, that was the damnedest dressing room I'd ever seen. I'll leave it at that. Would you agree?
Beer everywhere. I mean, Sandman being so drunk that he couldn't even get up to the top rope. I mean, just the craziness. You could never find a chair. I could never find a chair to sit in because they were all broken, you know, in the back.
But it was a great bunch of guys, though, because Paul Lee, you've known Paul Lee forever. Are y'all pretty close?
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't, let me tell you something. Paul Lee should appreciate and love me to death, because when Eddie and I met Paul Lee had only been in wrestling for like maybe 6 months, and we met him. And I told Eddie, you got to hire him and bring him to Alabama. And he brought him to Alabama, and then he assisted Eddie in booking and stuff like that. But I mean, if it wasn't for me, because Eddie wasn't sure about it, Eddie didn't. I'm not gonna, you know. And then Paul moved from New York all the way down to Alabama and lived with us. in our apartment.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
See, this is gold. I've never known this. And, of course, I've seen so much footage of Paulie down there in Continental with the big, gigantic cell phone.
Oh, yeah, with that big phone.
And so you told Eddie, hire this guy. So how was Paulie to live with? Because I know you guys aren't making shit piles of money at this time. So how was that living dynamic?
Okay. I never went into his bedroom or his bathroom. I kind of let him stay in there. But one time I did go in there, and all I saw was a bunch of white shirts and baseball cards. That's the only thing I saw in his room.
So Paulie's a baseball card collector?
I guess he was.
What did you see in Paulie back in the day? Because, when I go back and look at that old stuff, you and I were talking on the phone. We're not going to talk too much about the current product. But when you watch his promos now, the level he's at right now was just, it's different from a Jim Cornette, who's phenomenal, or all your other great talkers. But Paulie, back in the day, even at Continental, when he was just starting, he hustled his way into business. He was a silver-tongued devil laying down golden promos way back as a kid.
Yes, he was so good. And that's when I first met him. And I met him at we were doing something in Atlanta, so at some Cow Palace thing in Atlanta. And we met him, and he was down there, and he just got fired, I think, from Vern Gagne or something. And he wasn't really working, and he was down there. And he was so obnoxious, that New York obnoxious, doing his promos. And I fell in love with him. I was like, oh my God. And we would talk on the phone, like hours every night on the phone, me and him talking, and I finally told Eddie, you got to get this guy to have him come to, we were still living in Tennessee at the time, but I was like, because we were working for Memphis, but I told him, I was like, you've got to get this guy, you got to bring him to Continental, he's the best, he's going to be a great manager, he's going to be the bomb.
Let's give big ups to Geico for being a loyal sponsor of the Steve Austin Show. Go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you can be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, I'm giving Sean a go-home cue, so let's wrap it up for this week. Make sure you check out PodcastOne.com and subscribe to the Steve Austin Show so you don't miss any of these classic episodes. Before I ride off in the sunset, I do want to throw out a couple of plugs. I still got a beer. It's the Badass Broken Skull IPA, the finest IPA in the United States of America, and that's the bottom line. Made by El Segundo Brewing Company. You can find Broken Skull IPA at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in Cali. If you ain't in Cali, you're probably SOL. And if you're looking to get a badass pocket knife, I got two for you. Cold Steel Broken Skull Knife, Cold Steel Working Man Knife. Get them at my Amazon store. Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin, or go to the Cold Steel Knives website and check out all their badass knives. Also, one more big shout out to all my sponsors to make this show possible. That's how I'm able to bring this show to you free twice a week. Please support them because they support us. For more info, check out the podcast description to this episode for details. Folks, I am on social media, Twitter and Instagram, at Steve Austin BSR. Folks, I'll be back soon, but until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of Steve Austin Unleashed every Thursday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.